Hey there folks, my name is Cypher, Turtle God, and King of the Chug Gang, and I want to talk to you about a game I wish I could take a quick bonk to the back of the head, get amnesia, and totally forget about, just so that I can experience it again. And that game is Dark Souls. Okay, so let's get this out of the way first. The footage you're gonna see is of the remaster, because the original game is hard to get on PC now. But let it be known there's nothing actually wrong with the remaster, despite what the fanbase would have you believe. The remaster just removes all the shitty frame rate glitches that the original had, like falling through the floor when sliding down ladders, and it fixes the disgusting PowerPoint presentation that is Blight Town. Damn, I really hope this game came packaged with Excel. It also fixed some of the lighting issues, like the lava in Lost Izalith that used to be literally unplayably bright. Well, guess I'm blind now. In general, the remaster makes the game just look better as a whole. Personally, I think that this is just the best way to play Dark Souls 1 if you're doing a first playthrough, or even a nostalgic replay. It's a plug-and-play experience that has all of the comfy mechanics and animation jank of the original game that I honestly find really nostalgic, with the added benefit of not wanting to rip my eyes out the second I start the Caterpillar demon fight. Some people criticize the remaster for releasing with practically no changes in the original game's quirks in PvP, but no one's really playing the multiplayer anyway, and I didn't pay $60 for it on release while simultaneously expecting a totally new experience. So who cares? I'm not really here to talk about technical performance, but I will say this. The remaster has basically perfect performance on modern machines as far as frame rate and game ruining bugs go, so start there if you've never played the game or are coming to PC from a different console. What I am here to talk about is the experience. See, Dark Souls has developed a bit of a reputation for being hard, unforgiving, brutal. It's a true benchmark for how challenging a game is, apparently. Hundreds of games have come out since Dark Souls' release and have been compared to it, no matter how ridiculous that comparison might be. I once heard someone say that Ace Combat 7 is the Dark Souls of flight arcade games. Like, what? What did they mean by this? I guess this is a fair thing to take away from the game. They really are punishing you for first, second, and sometimes third playthroughs, depending on how good your memory or reflexes are. What I don't think is fair about this assessment, though, is how it disregards what really makes Dark Souls the memorable experience that it is. Atmosphere, map design, pacing, and story. Story? Dark Souls barely has a story, you might say, but I strongly encourage you to go back and play through the game again because you probably just weren't paying attention. Dark Souls is a story about the constant struggle between dark and light. The cyclic nature of fire is a main theme for the series as a whole. A spark creates fire that burns fuel. The fuel slowly burns until the flame is burning faster than the fuel can supply. The lack of fuel slowly chokes out the fire, and the fire is snuffed out. The fuel begins to slowly rebuild, and the hot embers left over from the fire eventually reignite it. Darkness breeds light, and light fades to breed darkness. Light and dark, yin and yang, life and death. It's a natural balance that has been explored not just in this series, but through religious texts, stories, myths, and legends for thousands of years in the real world. So basically, Dark Souls' backstory is that some moron named Gwyn decided, darkness kinda spooky though, and stepped in and started pouring the metaphorical gasoline on said fire to unnaturally prolong his selfish exploitation of the world. This unnatural act prolongs the cycle of fire, but does not inherently solve the issue of the cycle itself, and in fact fractures time into an infinite chain of possible outcomes. This pretty much, for lack of better words, pisses darkness off. Shit starts going wild. Many humans, products of the darkness, begin resurrecting after death, and slowly lose their mind, having lost their purpose. Now, I'm no lore expert, at least not on Dark Souls, so go watch VaatiVidya or something if you want to know more about all that, but what I have always been pretty good at is understanding underlying themes in media. One of the main themes of Dark Souls is that time is cyclical. Fighting time is futile. Time will eventually undo all things, big or small. Your character is brought into the world to rebalance the cycle of dark and light, or to prolong the life of the fire even longer. You are, in either case, the proof of the futility of Lord Gwyn's actions. Something the game really hammers home is that it doesn't really matter what you do. If you link the fire, in some other timeline, someone will come along and defeat you and let the fire fade. If you let the fire fade in some other timeline, the fire will begin again and the cycle will repeat. Dark Souls 3 plays with this concept and even makes the final boss a horrific Frankenstein combination of various human playstyles from the first game and of the original Lord Gwyn. It's honestly a really cool concept, one that has its roots in Hindu religious texts and mythology, and one that many forms of media have explored and toyed with through the years, from BioShock Infinite, Cloud Atlas, and The Elder Scrolls, to Adventure Time and Avatar: The Last Airbender. In my opinion, however, very few of these have done it justice quite as well as the Dark Souls series. The cyclic nature of time in the Souls universe leads to some unforgettable experiences, not just in boss fights and item descriptions, but even exploring the world itself. You'll often find yourself wandering through the ruins of dead civilizations that aren't fully explained. That's if the game even makes an attempt at explaining at all. There are items you find that will be useful to you in the game that have no explanation why they work, because the people who created the item have been dead for ages. To me, this feels incredibly realistic and relatable on some level. Many of us see this all the time in real life, whether we realize it or not. How many times have you been driving down the highway and seen a rundown shack off the side of the road? Someone used to live there, obviously. You can see proof of that just by noting that it's a man-made building. But who? What did they do there? This is especially true for those of you living in Europe and England and places that have been populated by humans for centuries. How many times do you see long stretches of flat land carved out for airfields long since abandoned? Or see the long forgotten husks of bunkers in the fields of France overtaken by weeds and whittled down by time? You know what happened there, it's in your history book. It's obvious at first glance, but do you know what the people who were there day after day were like? Do you know what they felt? How they spoke? If you find, say, an oil lantern left over in one of these bunkers, you of course understand the concept of how an oil lantern works. But who made it? How did the people who lived there use it? There will be times you will find an item in Dark Souls exactly like this, whether it's intentional or lost in the translation from Japanese to English. You find a red eye orb, you understand what it does and what it lets you do. It allows you to cross into another timeline and fight other people in the same general area as you. But do you know how it works? Do you know how it was made? Do you know why it was originally created? Will the game even try to explain these things? No, probably not. And even if it does, you're not guaranteed to see that explanation in any playthrough you ever do because of the sheer number of coincidences that have to line up for you to be able to find this information. It's not like you have Google at your disposal, or hell, even a library with the good old Dewey Decimal System to look through. And sure, this could be looked at as the developers saying, because I said so. You could write it off as lazy writers, which I'm sure is true to an extent. Being intentionally vague not only involves less writing, but it also creates an air of mystery. The thing is, though, for Dark Souls, this approach just works, and the series is far more entertaining if you pretend everything in the game has a reason to exist beyond the writers just saying it does. It requires a little imagination, but it's honestly better that way. Map design and atmosphere in the Dark Souls series go hand in hand and are hit or miss between games. Like, they're always fine, sometimes good, but nothing before or since the original Dark Souls has really hit the great category. Dark Souls left behind the established world exploration methods of its predecessor, Demon Souls, and instead of having one hub world with teleportation devices that take you to and from the areas of interest on the map, Dark Souls instead mostly seamlessly integrated every area of the game into one branching map with unlockable shortcuts and secret paths to new areas, taking the place of instant fast travel for the first half of the game. Every map area in Dark Souls is connected in some way or another, just about, and for the most part you'll see no loading screens. This is something even Dark Souls 3 failed to improve on, instead opting for going back to the Demon Souls idea of a centralized hub world. This is fine for gameplay. Teleportation takes you to and from a safe area for leveling and restocking healing supplies, and it puts you back into the action quickly and efficiently, but it's just missing something. The first Dark Souls had this feeling of wonder as you traveled through an area, traveling for hours fighting through monsters and bosses, wishing you could just go back to Firelink for a breather, and then suddenly discovering a shortcut back to Firelink behind a locked door and realizing just how short of a distance you've actually traveled. It has this almost Willy Wonka effect on me. A prime example of this is going from Firelink to the depths then back again. The first trip into the depths without a master key, oh, and by the way, for the love of God, don't play with the master key for your first playthrough, involves going up through the stairs, into Undeadburg, up to Undeadburg Castle to get the keys, back across the bridge, down to Lower Undeadburg, through a back alley, around a corkscrew, and finally down into the depths. However, the trip to Firelink from the depths is just back up the stairs, across the staircase leading up, back through the sewer tunnel and down the stairs. Interlinking map design creates a sense of adventure. I'm out here finding my own path, figuring out where I'm supposed to go, rather than selecting a path, going all the way down it, and then backtracking when I'm done, like in Dark Souls 2, or picking a pathway from a list and teleporting to it, like in Dark Souls 3 and Demon Souls. It's in my opinion a much more satisfying map design. One of the greatest experiences I've ever had in video games has been finding out that the Great Hollow was more than just a background prop, and finding out 3 playthroughs in there was a completely optional area with an optional boss fight called Ash Lake, with a completely missable faction and semi-unique enemies within. Meanwhile, in Dark Souls 2, the only thing that's ever surprised me was that there was a bonfire room hidden behind an illusory wall above the Mytha boss fight that made the entire area kind of a joke. Don't get me wrong, Dark Souls 2 and 3 have their moments, moments, but neither of them really inspire the true wonder and brain explosion that Dark Souls 1 manages to cause by simply opening a door to reveal that you've walked in a circle for 2 hours. Pacing. Dark Souls is all about pacing from the very second you gain character control. The first level starts you out by teaching you how to pick up items and open doors. Then it lets you practice attacks and power attacks on enemies that won't attack you back. Then it faces you with weak enemies that fight back to teach you to dodge and parry. Then it teaches you, usually in a non-lethal way, to watch out for traps. Then it teaches you how to deal with multiple enemies. Then it teaches you how to deal with shielded enemies. Then it teaches you about falling attacks and timing during boss fights. After the first boss fight, you work your way around to the Taurus demon that shows you how to look through the boss arena for exploits and reinforces falling attacks and dodge timing. After that, it's up to the dragon that teaches you sometimes you aren't supposed to be able to go a specific way, and that you should maybe look for alternative routes sometimes. Then it's up to the pig that again reinforces alternate routes and searching for weaknesses. Then you move on to the Iron Knight that teaches you how to deal with bigger enemies and AoE attacks. Then it's up to the gargoyles that teach you how summoning works and how to deal with multiple bosses all at once. All these lessons come up again later, finding an alternate route through Anor Londo to avoid the guards, fighting multiple bosses with Pikachu and Snorlax, learning to fight enemies with AoE attacks applies to the archers in Anor Londo, and many others. And each time these lessons are revisited, the punishment is more severe for not mastering it each time. Failing to kill the gargoyles in one go means having to sprint past enemies and up the ladder before resummoning your friendly AI and starting again. Failing to kill Smo and Ornstein on the first go means traversing through the castle, clearing the area leading to the boss room, resummoning Solaire, and then finally starting the boss fight. I hope after all of this you realize Dark Souls isn't really about difficulty. Dark Souls is a rhythm game. Memorizing character placement, unwritten rules for movement, attack timing, and dodging is not really any different from remembering the theme song to your favorite family-friendly anime. If you find this game difficult for your New Game Plus playthrough, you're either very forgetful, unfocused, or flat out slow to learn. The series will punish you for these things, so it's no wonder why a lot of people just don't have the time or willpower to learn the game, and will sometimes complain about it being brutally difficult. It's not a series for everyone, but it is a series that everyone could learn, if given enough time to find a rhythm that they like. Every playstyle is its own song. Every set of armor, every weapon, every shield changes the beat. You either learn to adapt or you get left behind. So I understand why when people have a hard time adapting, they get frustrated and demand the game be made less difficult. I don't think the game needs a difficulty slider personally, as I think most people are capable of learning to play the game as intended, and I do mean intended. The difficulty adds to the atmosphere of the game. But I also don't think that an easy mode would just destroy the game in and of itself, as the game has plenty to fall back on even if it were a breeze to play. As I've shown throughout this video, Dark Souls has more to fall back on than just its quote-unquote difficulty. After all, if it's really just the difficulty we're after when we play Dark Souls, then why aren't we complaining about the difficulty options in other games that are potentially just as hard? The same people who play Dark Souls and complain about people wanting an easy difficulty would probably praise the Fallen Order despite its various difficulty settings. I think it's because these people are missing the point entirely, and the developers aren't doing a whole lot to make people see the real point of the game either, with taglines like "prepare to die again" and the like. The game was never about being hard, it was about learning and persevering. This is something that I feel From Software has lost along the way with Bloodborne and Sekiro, which have just kind of thrown pacing and memory out the window in favor of just throwing more enemies at you and calling that difficulty. It's more of a test of reflexes now. Anyway, I give Dark Souls a perfect 10 Estus Flasks out of 10 well what is it's. I truly hope that you'll do a playthrough of Dark Souls and see the things I see when I play it, and understand why people still look back on this game as the best in the series, and realize that we've lost something along the way. Oh, and by the way, thanks for watching.